How do you live in a world where you have everything materially, but feel you have nothing spiritually? You know this feeling, don't you? You scroll through your phone with groceries delivered to your door, climate-controlled air surrounding you, entertainment infinite at your fingertips, and you feel empty. Not occasionally, constantly, like you're watching your own life happen to someone else. You've achieved the goals, got the degree, the career, the apartment. You've optimized your productivity, tried the meditation apps, read the self-help books. You've done everything the modern world told you would bring fulfillment. And yet here you are at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling wondering, is this it? Is this all there is? You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. And you're definitely not alone. G.K. Chesterton, a man who died in 1936, saw this coming like a freight train. He watched the modern world construct this exact trap. A civilization that would give you everything except a reason to live. A system that would hand you comfort, convenience, safety, entertainment, and leave you starving for the one thing none of those can provide. Meaning, here's what haunts me about Chesterton's diagnosis. He wasn't describing some distant dystopian future. He was watching it happen in his own time. The same alienation you feel from your corporate job, he saw it in the factories. The same family fragmentation tearing you apart, he witnessed at the beginning. The same political polarization that makes you want to scream, he lived through its birth. And he didn't just diagnose the disease. He found the cure, not a technique, not a system, not another thing to optimize or hack or achieve. Something far more dangerous and demanding than that. Something that actually works precisely because it asks everything from you. The question isn't whether you feel purposeless. If you're watching this, you do. The question is whether you're brave enough to hear Chesterton's solution, because it's going to challenge every comfortable assumption modern life has taught you. If you're exhausted by the endless striving that leads nowhere, you're not crazy. That hollow feeling isn't a character flaw or a chemical imbalance requiring medication. It's your soul correctly identifying that it's starving on thin gruel when it needs solid food. Chesterton discovered something revolutionary disguised as something ancient. The adventure you're desperately craving isn't found in the next achievement, the next relationship, the next city, the next anything. It's found in recovering what the modern world systematically destroyed: wonder, rootedness, limits, and yes, ultimately, transcendent purpose. In the next few minutes, we're going to discover together why you feel the way you do, why every modern solution fails, and what Chesterton saw that could actually transform your experience of being alive. If you want to explore the thinking of minds like Chesterton, thinkers who saw through modern illusions to timeless truths, subscribe to this channel where we excavate wisdom that actually changes lives. You know what fascinates me most about Chesterton? He doesn't start by telling you what to believe. He starts by validating what you already know, but everyone else denies. You walk into any grocery store in America, and it looks identical. Fluorescent lights, white floors, product arranged with corporate precision. Starbucks in every corner, same menu everywhere. Scroll through Instagram and every city looks the same. Industrial lofts expose brick, the same boutique coffee shops with the same succulents. The modern world tells you this is progress, efficiency, convenience, access. But notice what you actually feel. Nothing. No wonder. No discovery. No surprise. You could be anywhere, which means you're essentially nowhere. Chesterton noticed this pattern emerging in his own time. He watched as industrialization replaced local breweries with massive beer factories, small family shops with department stores, unique neighborhoods with standardized blocks. He saw something everyone else celebrated as advancement, and he said, "Wait, we're losing something essential here." What we're losing is particularity, uniqueness, the specific character of places and things and people. And when you lose that, you lose the capacity for wonder, because wonder requires encounter with something genuinely other, genuinely different, genuinely surprising. Let me show you how this works in your life right now. You're in a meeting and someone says something stupid. You don't engage with the actual stupidity of what they said. You categorize it. That's such a progressive take, or that's typical conservative thinking. You stop seeing the person. You're seeing a category, a type, a representative of a tribe. No wonder required. No curiosity ingad. Just pattern matching and dismissal. Or you're scrolling through dating apps. Faces blur together. Everyone has the same poses, the same filters, the same bio cliches about loving travel and tacos. You're theoretically connecting with dozens of people, but you're experiencing none of them. They're not particular individuals with irreducible uniqueness. They're options in a catalog. Chesterton would say, "Of course you feel purposeless. Purpose requires encountering reality, actual, particular, surprising reality. But you've been trained to experience everything through abstractions, categories, and systems." Here's where it gets really interesting. Chesterton wasn't some Luddite wanting to smash machines and return to medieval poverty. He loved modernity's tools. What he hated was modernity's philosophy, the idea that efficiency, standardization, and scale are the highest goods. Because here's the paradox he discovered. The more efficiently you organize life, the less alive you feel. The more you optimize, the more mechanical you become. The more you systematize, the more you lose touch with the chaotic, messy, wonderful particularity of actual existence. You experience this yourself. Your most productive day wasn't your most meaningful day. Your most efficient relationship wasn't your deepest one. Your most optimized schedule wasn't when you felt most human. The modern world promised that if you just got organized enough, productive enough, successful enough, then you'd have time for meaning. But Chesterton saw the trap. Meaning doesn't come after efficiency. It comes through engagement with inefficient, particular, surprising reality. Your soul is starving because you're experiencing simulacra of life, not life itself. Categories instead of people, brands instead of places, optimization instead of adventure. And the terrible truth? You can't fix this with another app, another system, another technique. Those are precisely the problem, not the solution. Now, let's examine why the modern solutions we've been sold actually make the problem worse. Imagine this scene for a moment. It's Sunday morning and you've decided to work on your mental health. You open your meditation app. Soothing voice guides you to be present. You sit there, eyes closed, following instructions to notice your breath. Scan your body. Let thoughts pass without judgment. 20 minutes later, you check it off your habit tracker. Mental health, achieved. Mindfulness, completed. You feel vaguely accomplished, maybe slightly calmer, but definitely not transformed. Here comes a really interesting part. Chesterton would say you just experienced a perfect encapsulation of why modern solutions to meaninglessness always fail. You turned the spiritual practice into a productivity metric. You commodified the sacred. You try to achieve peace the same way you achieve a sales target. Notice how this works across every modern solution to purposelessness. Therapy culture tells you meaning comes through self-understanding. Know yourself. Process your trauma. Optimize your mental patterns. But Chesterton observed something crucial. The man who lives in a small community lives in a much larger world. The reason is obvious. In a large community, we can choose our companions. In a small community, our companions are chosen for us. Translation. Meaning doesn't come from understanding yourself better. It comes from being forced to engage with reality outside yourself, particularly the difficult, inconvenient, challenging reality of actual other people whom you didn't choose and can't optimize. You know this is true from experience. Your most meaningful relationships aren't with people who perfectly match your values on a dating app algorithm. They're with family members who drive you crazy, neighbors who need help at inconvenient times, friends who challenge your assumptions. The messiness isn't a bug, it's the entire point. The self-help industry promises fulfillment through personal development. Read more books, attend more seminars, develop more skills, become the best version of yourself. But Chesterton noticed how much larger your life would be if yourself could become smaller in it. He's not advocating low self-esteem. He's saying that obsessive focus on self-improvement makes you smaller, not larger. You become trapped in the tiny universe of your own optimization project. Meanwhile, actual life, with its dragons to fight, neighbors to love, injustices to oppose, beauty to create, happens outside that narcissistic bubble. Let me share something personal here. I spent years trying to engineer meaning. I read the productivity books, implemented the systems, tracked the habits. I made myself extraordinarily efficient at being miserable because I was treating my life like a machine to optimize rather than an adventure to live. Career culture says purpose comes through impact. Find your passion. Build something meaningful. Change the world. Sounds inspiring, right? Except Chesterton watched this narrative emerge and saw the trap. It makes meaning dependent on achievement, which means it makes meaning conditional and fragile. You're productive, you have purpose. You're successful, you have meaning. But what happens when you fail? When the startup collapses? When you get laid off? When you realize your world-changing job is actually just making rich people richer? Purpose evaporates because it was built on achievement, not on something more fundamental. Here's what all these modern solutions share. They're techniques for achieving meaning. But Chesterton discovered that meaning isn't achieved, it's received. It's not something you create through the right combination of meditation, therapy, self-help, and career moves. It's something you discover when you stop trying to engineer it and start engaging with reality as it actually is. Particular, demanding, surprising, and fundamentally given rather than chosen. The modern world keeps selling you solutions that operate within the same paradigm that created the problem. More optimization, more achievement, more control, more self-focus. Chesterton's solution operates in an entirely different paradigm, and that's exactly why it works. Wait till you see what Chesterton discovered about the relationship between limits and freedom, because it's going to flip everything you've been taught. The modern world's core promise is this: remove limits, gain freedom. Want freedom? Remove religious constraints, traditional morality, community expectations, geographic rootedness, family obligations. The more you shed these limits, the freer you become, right? Except you've actually tested this hypothesis with your own life, and notice what happened. You moved to a city where nobody knows you. Total freedom from community judgment. Do you feel freer? Or do you feel unmoored, anonymous, like you could disappear and nobody would notice? You rejected religious rules as arbitrary constraints. Freedom from guilt and obligation. But do you feel liberated? Or do you feel like you're floating in space with no gravity, no direction, no framework for making sense of anything? You kept your romantic options open, refusing to limit yourself with commitment. Maximum freedom, right? But how's that working? Do you feel freer? Or do you feel like you're endlessly shopping in a catalog that never satisfies because every choice forecloses nothing, which means no choice means anything? Chesterton saw this paradox that nobody wanted to acknowledge. Limits are what make freedom meaningful. Here's how he put it. Art is limitation. The essence of every picture is a frame. Think about that. The frame doesn't constrain the painting. It creates the painting. Without edges, without boundaries, you don't have liberation. You have chaos, formlessness, nothing. The sonnet isn't less free because it is 14 lines. The structure is precisely what enables the poet's creativity. Remove the form, and you don't get more freedom. You get blank formlessness where nothing particular can be created. This sounds absurd at first, but stick with me, because Chesterton applies this to everything. Marriage isn't loss of romantic freedom. It's the limit that makes love actually meaningful. When you promise forsaking all others, you create the secure space where genuine intimacy becomes possible. The person who keeps all options open never experiences the depth that commitment creates. They're free to surf surfaces forever. Place isn't a constraint. It's what makes you particular. Chesterton chose to live in Beaconsfield, a small English town, his whole adult life. Insane limitation by modern standards, right? You could live anywhere, travel constantly, experience everything. But notice what he actually experienced. He knew his neighbors deeply. He engaged with local politics intimately. He observed a particular beauty of particular trees in particular seasons. His world wasn't smaller because it was geographically limited. It was larger because it was thoroughly inhabited rather than shallowly sampled. You know this from Instagram travel culture. People who've been to 50 countries often can't tell you anything particular about any of them. They've seen everything, experienced nothing. Meanwhile, the person who's deeply rooted in one place knows it with an intimacy that's actually worldly in the true sense. They've encountered the universe in a grain of sand. Tradition and religious practice aren't arbitrary rules constraining your authentic self. They're tried structures that actually enable flourishing in ways you can't see until you submit to them. Chesterton compared this to a child in a playground. Put the child in a yard without fences. They'll stay close to the center, afraid. But build a fence around the yard? Suddenly they play freely everywhere within it, right up to the edges. The limit creates the freedom. I thought about this when I finally understood why I felt so purposeless despite having maximum freedom. I'd systematically removed every limit the modern world told me was oppressive. And what did I get? Paralysis. Analysis paralysis in decisions. Commitment paralysis in relationships. Identity paralysis because I could theoretically be anyone, which meant I wasn't actually anyone. The solution wasn't more freedom. It was choosing limits that would give my freedom shape and meaning. If this paradox is hitting you like it hit me, that maybe the freedom you've been chasing is actually the cage, hit like so more people can discover this countercultural truth. Because every modern institution is lying to you about this. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced the meaninglessness problem to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced the meaninglessness problem to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced to its root. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the root isn't political, economic, or even philosophical in the abstract sense. It's theological. Let's look at this from the ground up, not top down. Chesterton eventually traced to its root. And here's where it gets that I can feel half of you reflexively recoiling. I'm not religious. This doesn't apply to me. I'm looking for practical wisdom, not conversion. But stay with me, because Chesterton's insight here works even if you bracket the theological claims. The structural point is crucial. Modern meaninglessness isn't a bug in an otherwise functional system. It's the inevitable result of a particular metaphysical belief that the universe is purposeless matter in motion, that human beings are sophisticated accidents, and that meaning is something we construct rather than discover. Notice what this belief does to your experience. If meaning is constructed, it's ultimately arbitrary. Your purpose is whatever you decide it is, which sounds empowering until you realize it's also whatever anyone else decides it is, which means there's no actual grounding for anything. Your values aren't true or false. They're just preferences, like preferring chocolate to vanilla. You felt this vertigo yourself. You care about justice. But why? In a purposeless universe, justice is just a word describing chemical reactions in primate brains. You feel love matters. But why? It's just evolutionary programming to ensure genetic propagation. You think truth is important, but on what basis? Truth is just useful fictions that aided survival. The modern world says, you decide what gives your life meaning. But Chesterton noticed a trap. If you're the one deciding, then you're simultaneously the authority and the subject. You're making up the rules of a game you're playing, which means you can't really lose, you'll just change the rules. But you also can't really win because winning is arbitrary. No wonder you feel purposeless. You're trying to play a game with no actual rules, no actual stakes, no actual meaning beyond what you arbitrarily assign. Here's where Chesterton's Christianity enters. Not as arbitrary belief, but as response to this existential trap. Christianity claims the universe has inherent purpose. You didn't create meaning, you discover it. Reality isn't formless matter you impose categories onto. It's ordered creation with built-in meanings you align yourself with or rebel against. This isn't comfortable. It's actually demanding and dangerous. Because if meaning is real and not constructed, then you can be wrong about meaning. Your life can be pointed in the wrong direction. Your values can be misaligned with reality. You're not the sovereign author of your own story. You're a character in a larger story with an actual author. But notice what this does. It makes meaning real, grounded, solid, independent of your feelings or decisions. Justice actually matters because it reflects divine nature. Love actually matters because it participates in eternal love. Truth actually matters because reality is authored by truth himself. Chesterton's paradox. The theological worldview that seems most limiting, you're not the ultimate authority, is what makes meaning most real. It's grounded in something beyond your arbitrary construction. Now here's the crucial thing. You don't have to accept Chesterton's theological claims to see the structural problem he identified. Even if you remain agnostic or atheist, you can recognize that a worldview where meaning is constructed by you will always produce the purposelessness you're experiencing. Because constructed meaning is inherently fragile, arbitrary, and ultimately unsatisfying. You might pursue secular alternatives, Stoicism, Buddhism, virtue ethics. Chesterton would say those are better than modern nihilism because at least they're trying to ground meaning in something beyond arbitrary preference. But he'd also say Christianity offers something uniquely powerful. Not just philosophical meaning, but personal meaning. You're not just aligning with abstract principles. You're in relationship with a person who knows you, loves you, and has purpose for you specifically. That claim, whether you believe it or not, addresses the deepest ache of modern purposelessness. Not just what should I do, but does anyone care that I exist? Here comes the really interesting part. Chesterton's Christianity wasn't the domesticated, safe version you might imagine. Modern people reject Christianity because they think it's boring. Rules and restrictions. Church services with bad music. Platitudes about being nice. Cultural Christianity that's just middle-class values with a religious veneer. But Chesterton discovered Christianity was dangerous, demanding, wild. It makes the largest possible claims, God became human. Death is defeated. Reality is transfigured. And then asks everything from you in response. Listen how he describes a conversion. The Christian ideal has not been tried and found wanting. It has been found difficult and left untried. Notice the paradox. We don't reject Christianity because we tried it and it failed. We reject it because we glimpse how demanding it is and we're afraid. It's not that faith doesn't work. It's that it works by asking everything. This isn't self-help spirituality where God becomes cosmic life coach helping you achieve your goals. It's the opposite. You died to your goals and received God's goals. You surrender your small story to be caught up in the largest story. You stop being protagonist in your own manufactured narrative and become supporting character in the divine drama. That sounds like loss of autonomy. And it is. But Chesterton discovered, autonomy was a prison, not the freedom. Think about your actual experience with autonomy. You're free to decide what your life means. How's that working? You've tried career as meaning, unfulfilling. Relationships as meaning, disappointing. Impact as meaning, never enough. Pleasure as meaning, diminishing returns. Achievement as meaning, moving goalpost. You exhaust yourself trying to manufacture meaning that satisfies. And it never does, because you're trying to be author of a story only an infinite author can write. Chesterton's solution: stop trying to write your own story. Discover the story you're already in. This means specific, concrete practices, not abstract belief. Worship regularly, even when you don't feel like it. Because meaning isn't about feeling, it's about reality. And reality includes the truth that you're a creature before Creator, whether you acknowledge it or not. Practice family life as sacred vocation, not lifestyle choice. The modern world says family is one option among many for self-fulfillment. Chesterton says family is the fundamental unit of civilization, where you learn to love actual difficult people, not theoretical abstract humanity. Root yourself geographically. Stop treating place as interchangeable. Choose somewhere, commit to it, know it deeply. Engage with local institutions. The modern temptation is to stay fluid, keep options open. Chesterton says that produces hollowness. Depth comes through commitment. Accept limits as gifts. When you encounter constraint, financial, relational, vocational, the modern impulse is to transcend it, optimize around it, treat it as problem to solve. Try instead, what if this limit is precisely where meaning is hiding? What if the constraint is the teacher? Recover wonder at the ordinary. Chesterton's whole approach was treating common things as miracles, not the exotic, not the optimized, not the Instagrammable, the ordinary. Bread, friendship, sunlight, your actual neighbor, the particularity of Tuesday. You know what I've noticed in my own life? The moments of genuine meaning weren't the achievements I chased. They were the ordinary moments I almost missed because I was too busy chasing. Dinner with difficult family members, helping a neighbor move, sitting with a friend through grief, morning light on a particular tree I see every day. Chesterton would say those aren't interruptions to the meaningful life you're trying to achieve. Those are the meaningful life. And you keep missing it because you're looking for something more impressive, more Instagram-worthy, more you've arrived. The adventure isn't out there somewhere, waiting for you to find it after you've optimized everything. The adventure is right here, in the ordinary sacredness of committed love, rooted place, and transcendent worship. But you have to choose it. And that choice is the most dangerous thing you'll ever do. How do you live in a world where you have everything materially but nothing spiritually? Now you see the question differently, don't you? Because Chesterton showed us the question itself contains a problem. You're treating spiritual meaning like material possession, something to acquire, achieve, optimize. The entire modern project promised that if you removed limits, accumulated freedom, maximized options, and engineered your life correctly, meaning would follow. And you've tested that hypothesis with your actual existence. You have the freedom, the options, the optimization, and you feel empty. That's not failure. That's successful disproof of the hypothesis. Chesterton's diagnosis wasn't abstract philosophy. It was pattern recognition from someone watching the modern world construct the exact trap you're living in. A civilization that provides everything except a reason to live, comfort without purpose, efficiency without meaning, freedom without foundation. His solution wasn't another technique to add to your optimization stack. It was a complete paradigm shift. Meaning isn't constructed, it's discovered. Stop trying to engineer purpose. Start engaging with reality as it actually is. Particular, demanding, sacred. Limits aren't constraints. They're forms that enable freedom. Stop shedding commitments in search of liberation. Start choosing limits that give your life shape. The ordinary is an obstacle to meaning. It's a location of meaning. Stop waiting for life to begin after you've achieved enough. Start seeing the miraculous in Tuesday morning light. You're not the author. You're a character. Stop exhausting yourself trying to write a satisfying story from nothing. Start discovering the larger story you're already in. This isn't safe. It's not comfortable. It asks everything, which is exactly why it's the only thing that actually satisfies. Your soul is starving because you've been feeding it techniques when it needs truth, optimization when it needs mystery, achievement when it needs surrender, self-focus when it needs transcendence. Chesterton saw this a century ago. The question is whether you're ready to see it now. From now on, when you find yourself scrolling at 2 a.m. feeling that familiar emptiness, you'll remember that Chesterton taught us purposelessness isn't a problem requiring another solution. It's a symptom revealing which solutions don't work. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to remember this. Meaning isn't waiting for you at the end of the optimization project. It's available right now. In ordinary reality, you're avoiding while chasing impressive achievements. In the coming weeks, observe how the paradigm shift transforms daily experience. When you're frustrated by a limit, ask, what if this constraint is a teacher? When you're bored by the ordinary, ask, what miracle am I missing right now? When you're paralyzed by infinite options, ask, what commitment would give this freedom shape? You'll see that Chesterton wasn't offering nostalgia for a lost past. He was offering pattern recognition. Every time civilization trades rootedness for mobility, limits for limitlessness, sacred for engineered, particularity for standardization, people feel exactly what you feel. Purposeless, empty, like spectators in their own lives. Recovery doesn't mean becoming Chesterton or returning to 1910. It means applying his principles to your actual life. Root yourself somewhere real. Commit to actual difficult people. Choose limits that matter. Practice wonder at the ordinary. And yes, consider that the theological worldview you rejected might be the only thing that makes meaning actually real. The adventure you're desperately craving begins the moment you stop trying to engineer it and start living it. Today, in whatever ordinary, limited, particular reality you've been treating as obstacle to the meaningful life you're waiting to achieve. There's a line from Chesterton I can't forget. The riddles of God are more satisfying than the solutions of man. Do you feel the weight of that truth? Do you recognize how it changes everything? For years, you've been chasing human solutions to divine riddles, techniques for mystery, engineering for transcendence, and the solutions never satisfy because they're not addressing what you're actually hungry for. Imagine your life 6 months after stopping the exhausting project of manufacturing meaning and starting the dangerous adventure of discovering it. You won't be perfect. Chesterton never promised perfection, but you'll be alive in a way you've forgotten was possible. You'll see ordinary reality transfigured. You'll experience rootedness not as constraint, but as a thing that makes wonder possible. And when that familiar emptiness tries to convince you that you need to achieve more, optimize more, engineer more, you'll know exactly what to do. Look around at the particular, ordinary, sacred reality you're actually in and choose to be fully present to it. This channel exists to discover together the wisdom of thinkers like Chesterton, people who saw through modern illusions to timeless truths we desperately need. Subscribe if you want to continue this journey of recovery. In the next video, we'll discover why Chesterton said, "The Christian ideal has been found difficult and left untried," and what tried actually looks like in American life today. See you there. And meanwhile, may you find unexpected joy in the ordinary miracles you've been missing. In the next video, we'll discover why Chesterton said, "The Christian ideal has been found difficult and left untried," and what tried actually looks like in American life today. See you there. And meanwhile, may you find unexpected joy in the ordinary miracles you've been missing. In the next video, we'll discover why Chesterton said, "The Christian ideal has been found difficult and left untried," and what tried actually looks like in American life today. See you there. And meanwhile, may you find unexpected joy in the ordinary miracles you've been missing. In the next video,